We want to know that you will allow us to come into your life and develop trust with you. I know we live in a society today where everybody is guilty until they prove themselves innocent, as opposed to 30 years ago where everybody was innocent until they proved themselves guilty. I know some people are like, well, you just can't trust people nowadays. Oh, yes, you can. Well, Trevor, people have gotten worse. No, they have not. People have become less trusting of their own intuitions, their own ability to analyze opportunity or people as to whether opportunity or people are good or are they bad. See, the word skepticism, you ever heard the word skepticism? People use it like a badge of honor nowadays. They walk around going, yeah, I'm kind of skeptical. I'm kind of skeptical. Trevor, I don't know. I'm kind of one of those skeptical guys. I'm going, guys, you understand the root of the word skepticism means lack of information, uninformed, uneducated, unaware. Skepticism. Lack of information, uneducated, uninformed, uncertain, and unaware. Isn't that amazing? Someone goes, yeah, I'm kind of skeptical. But you wouldn't look at somebody and go, well, I'm kind of uncertain. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing that people will get in a room like this with somebody who is absolutely certain, and they'll leave a room like this and go talk to somebody who is completely and totally uncertain, and the uncertain person confuses them? It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Some of you guys are like, well, Trevor, I'm still skeptical. Guys, the root of the word skepticism is lack of information and uncertain and uninformed. And that's the whole point of this process, is to fully inform you, fully educate you, and make sure that you're absolutely and totally certain of what the 5-year journey might look like to build an asset and what mentorship it could look like in your life. And if you're like, well, Trevor, I understand you're going to spend 3, 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks to educate me, but I'm still skeptical. That's not skepticism, ladies and gentlemen. That is distrust. And it's not that you don't trust me. It's that you don't trust yourself. You just don't trust your own ability to analyze opportunity or evaluate people as to whether opportunity or people are good or are they bad, right?
Correction. If you look this up, the etymology of uncertain means to inquire, to investigate, thoughtful. Skepticism does not mean uncertainty. It does not mean uncertainty of oneself. Skepticism is a decision-making tool. It means that individuals evaluate claims based on evidence, not on hype or on claims that people like to tell them. Uncertainty means that people lack information, info. Skepticism means people refuse to accept information without verification, without inquiring, without research, without verifying. Uncertainty and skepticism are two very different things. And so, in regards to a business proposition, if a business proposition is truly a legitimate business, skepticism should be welcomed. It should be welcomed and it should not be discouraged. Uncertainty simply means not enough info yet. Skepticism means thinking critically and demanding proof. A true legitimate business proposition or opportunity can withstand skepticism. Only scams need people to shut off critical thinking and due diligence for research. And so, if a company like LTD, Leadership Team Development, decides to deliberately lie to all of its members at an event through making false income claims and false advertisement statements about the Amway compensation plan and about the Amway opportunity, and then later on make an apology video about that, the owners of LTD making an apology video about that, admitting that they made false income claims and false advertised at one of their events with all of their LTD members in attendance, and then that video is kept hidden from low level ranks that are currently a part of LTD and that were in attendance at that event. That event where all LTD members attended. If that happens, how do you expect to develop trust with all of your LTD members? How do you expect to have continued trust with all of your LTD members moving forward? How do you expect to have all of your LTD members believe you when you make claims or you tell them anything to them live publicly at any event? How do you expect them to believe what you say and take your word for it and trust your word if you lied to them initially and then made an apology video about it and never actually released that video to the entire team, to the entire LTD team, and you left people purposefully in the dark about your confession? How do you expect people to trust you? As they like to say, as LT likes to say, your bond is your word and your word is your bond. Well, I mean, by your word you lied. And then even worse, you made a confession about that lie, but you deliberately kept that confession from all of your members that were in attendance. And you only released that confession to a select few that were in attendance, specifically the high level ranks that are part of LTD. That is spineless, that is cowardice, and that is hypocritical, because these LTD high level ranks, including the owners of LTD, Larry Pam Winters, love to brag about how they're loyal people, they're men and women of their word, and they're honest, they're transparent, they're all about building trust with their teams and their prospects that eventually become members of their Amway and LT team, and they're all about honesty and integrity and, all of these things. And it's all BS. I mean, first off, you lie publicly at an event. Then second, you make a confession. And then third, you only release that confession to high level ranks and you keep that confession hidden from low level ranks, and they never know about that confession, and they never know that you violated Amway's rules at that event where all LTD members were in attendance. Not only is that cowardice, hypocritical, and spineless, but it is also illegal, and it violates a lot of violations actually legally. And so we will expose that, and we will go over all of that, and we will expose LTD and all of its high level ranks for the type of individuals that they are. And that is that they are wolves in sheep's clothing. They portray and put on an image that they are righteous, good, honest people, but in reality, they are vultures. They are wolves that seek to devour and harm people financially and to financially exploit them and to financially scam them in order to make a profit from the masses and masses of people and put those masses of people at a financial loss. And so we are going to reveal this. We're going to shed a light on all of this and expose all of this. This show is called Unplug. On this show, we free the minds of the people that have been indoctrinated and enslaved by the MLM matrix or the multi-level marketing matrix or the direct selling industry. In particular, we speak truth against the lies and fallacies of Amway and LTD. I'm your host, TJ Masumi. On my last episode, I revealed that the owners of LTD, Leadership Team Development, the owners named Larry and Pam Winters, they made a confession video, just the two of them, and I played it on my last episode. And they confessed that at their recent conference called Summit, and Summit is the FED version of LTD. FED standing for Free Enterprise Day. The Free Enterprise Day version of LTD called Summit at their conference recently of this year of October 2025. Larry and Pam Winters made false income claims about the Amway Corporation, and they false advertised about the Amway Corporation and the opportunity. And they made a confession video that they did these things, that they made false income claims and that they false advertised. They made that confession on video, on tape, and that was password protected. And it turns out, I found out from a couple of people that that video was not shared to all attendees that were at that event called Summit, the FED version of LTD. Not every member that's a part of LTD received that video. Not every attendee that was there that's current received that video, and not every member that is current and that was there at that event has not been informed that Larry and Pam made false income claims and false advertised about the Amway opportunity. They are not aware, and they are not aware that Larry and Pam violated Amway QAS content standards, quality assurance standards, and they are not aware that Larry and Pam Winters are suspended from their Amway distributor accounts temporarily. So that's actually illegal. If you didn't know this, even though that video was shared with higher ranks that are part of LTD, and it wasn't shared with lower ranks that are part of LTD that were in attendance for LTD Summit conference, that's actually illegal. It's very illegal. Every attendee that was there at that conference and that is a current member today legally has the right to see that video, and they legally have the right to be disclosed that Larry and Pam Winters made false income claims and false advertised to them at that conference, at that LTD conference called Summit. They have the legal right to be disclosed that, and legally, by law, LTD is required to disclose the fact that the owners of LTD, Larry and Pam Winters, violated the Amway QAS content standards, and that they made false income claims, and that they false advertised about the Amway opportunity. They are legally required by law. And so since LTD is purposefully and deliberately deciding not to disclose the fact that the owners of LTD, Larry and Pam Winters, made false income claims and false advertised at the recent Summit conference for LTD to all of its attendees and current members that are part of LTD, since they're deliberately deciding to hide that and conceal that from low level ranks that are part of LTD, that is illegal. Number one, first off, this would be deception by omission. Deception by omission. This would be the first illegal act that is being committed by hiding this confession from LTD low level ranks. Larry and Pam Winters made false income claims and false advertisement statements about Amway at the LTD Summit Conference in October 2025 to the entire LTD team that's in attendance, because at Summit, that's a conference where every LTD member attends. It's for every LTD member to attend that conference, the Summit conference. That's that conference called Summit. So they made false income claims and they false advertised. And then later on, they just admitted through a confession on video that they made false income claims and that they false advertised. However, that confession on video was restricted to higher ups, to high level ranks that are a part of LTD. And low level ranks never received that video, which means they never received correction in terms of what's the actual accurate income claims in regards to the Amway opportunity, and what's the actual legitimate advertisement statements about the Amway opportunity. And so because low level ranks were never made aware about this and never corrected about this, this would be deception by omission. And through this illegal act of deception by omission, it would also then, in addition to this, would be illegal and also a violation of the FTC Act, located in Section 5 for unfair or deceptive acts. And that also, when it comes to unfair or deceptive acts, that includes false income claims, misleading opportunity claims, hiding corrections, and withholding material facts. And obviously, this situation fits all those things under the FTC Act in Section 5, where, Larry and Pam made false income claims. They were misleading people about the Amway opportunity, and then they made corrections by making a confession, but they kept that confession from low-level ranks. And low-level ranks to this day that are part of LTD do not know and have not been disclosed that Larry and Pam made a confession and that they made false income claims and that they false advertised at that conference at Summit. So people that were there in attendance to this day that are current members of LTD do not know that Larry and Pam made a confession and that they violated Amway's QAS content standards and that they made false income claims and false advertised, and that they are now temporarily suspended from their Amway accounts. So essentially the LTD high-level ranks purposefully are withholding material facts, and that material facts are the confession that Larry and Pam made. So this would be a violation of the FTC Act, Section 5, and along with that, it would be a violation of state consumer protection laws as well. So every state, including Iowa, has strong consumer protection laws that make deception illegal. And these laws are broad on purpose so they can catch behavior exactly like what happened recently at the LTD conference called Summit. Essentially, state consumer protection laws make basically lying illegal. So that includes misrepresentation, omission, half-truths, ambiguous or misleading statements, deceptive income claims, false advertising, failing to disclose material facts, and withholding key corrections from people you misled. But overall, the biggest one when it comes to state consumer protection laws is just omission, because omission essentially is deception. So even if you don't say something false, if you fail to tell the truth when you are legally required to do so, that's illegal. And obviously, Larry and Pam are legally required to tell the truth to every single one of their attendees that were at LTD and that are current members today, a part of LTD, because they violated Amway QS content standards, quality assurance standards. They made false income claims and they false advertised about Amway. And so by law, they are required, as owners of LTD, they are required to tell each and every single one of their LTDs members that are current today that were in attendance at the LTD conference called Summit here recently that they were in violation, and they're supposed to tell that and make that confession to them. They're legally required to do so by law. And on top of that, they're required to do so by Amway because they violated Amway's quality assurance standards, content standards. All right, and state laws exist to protect normal people from business schemes, unfair recruiting tactics, fake testimonials, income exaggerations, passive income lies, and training organizations that hide corrections. And so through LTD purposefully deciding not to tell all of their LTD attendees that are current today that are in attendance for the LTD conference called Summit about their violation towards Amway QAS content standards, that makes LTD a state level unfair business practice through state consumer protection laws. And also through this illegal act of deception by omission, they violated the FTC earning claims. They violated the Federal Trade Commission earning claims rules through false income claims, unsupported claims, not giving proper disclosures, telling only successful stories, and not correcting false information. LT did all of these things at the recent conference called Summit, and then compounded the violation by only giving the correction or the confession of Larry Pam Winters to upper high level ranks that are in LTD, and not giving it to low level ranks that are in LTD that were at attendance at the LTD conference called Summit. And also what I recently stated here about not giving proper disclosures. What I mean here is that that's what the FTC has that as a rule. And so in this case, Larry and Pam were required at Summit to show the Amway income disclosure because they were making income claims about Amway. Even though they were false, they were still making income claims about Amway. And according to the Amway Quality Assurance Standards, QAS content standards, if you make income claims about Amway to prospects and downline, you're supposed to show the annual Amway income disclosure. It's in their contract. It's in the Amway QAS content standards that every Amway rep is required to disclose the Amway income disclosure if they ever make any income claims about Amway whatsoever. And so at Summit, they were making income claims about Amway whatsoever. And so legally, Larry and Pam Winters were required to show the Amway annual income disclosure, but they didn't. So that also is illegal, and that falls under the violation of the FTC earnings claims rules. And I've gone over this before on my show if you don't know, but the annual income disclosure, that's basically a typed out document where Amway shows the average on how much every Amway IBO made up to the founder's platinum level. They don't talk about the average income earnings beyond founder's platinum. They just talk about how much did the average Amway IBO or rep make up towards the founder's platinum level or the Q12 platinum level, but not any higher. So I have a link to all of the recent Amway income disclosures, and I have a link to the current Amway income disclosure that was released that documents last year's earnings, 2024, on my website called www.youapplianceifound.com. I'll post the link below, but I can tell you that the average Amway Founders Platinum, Q12 Platinum makes anywhere, they make less than $46,000 before expenses in the U.S. And then the average Platinum, not Founders, but Platinum, they make less than $22,000 annually before expenses. So, I mean, legally they're supposed to show that, and also that income disclosure also shows how much did the average Amway IBO make as a whole, and so that's the average that's the average of how much did the average Amway IBO make with all the ranks. So all the ranks, they take the average from all the ranks that are in Amway in the U.S. and they take the average of that and they calculate what was the average earnings from every Amway IBO from every rank, and that specifically on average is usually less than $1,000 in the U.S. before expenses, less than $1,000 in the U.S. before expenses. And like I said, if you don't believe me, you can look at my links that I have on my website that I'll post below here. My website has the annual income disclosure from these recent years, and then also this current year as well. So, for your own discretion. All right, so just to make clear here, so the fact that they hid this confession from LTD Low Level Ranks that are currently in and that were in attendance for the LTD Summit Conference, the act of hiding this video is deception by omission. That's the specific act, and then that act then violates three illegal. It violates three laws, or in other words, it triggers three laws that are being violated illegally, and that's what we went over here recently. The FTC Act, Section 5, because the FTC Act includes omissions, and obviously LTD violated the FTC Act, Section 5, because they hid the confession that was made from Larry Pam Winters and from low level ranks that are part of LTD currently, and so that would be omission. And so it violates the FTC Act, Section 5, because it is deception by omission. They omitted that confession from low-level LTD ranks. And then the other law that's violated, the other law that they triggered to violate, is the state consumer protection laws. And that basically addresses the fact that misrepresentation and material omissions are illegal. And so by LTD simply not telling people, their current members that were in attendance for the LTD conference called Summit, if LTD didn't tell them, which they didn't tell them that they were misled on purpose through false income claims and false advertising, that's illegal. I mean, just simply not telling your attendees that are current members today, simply not telling them after you made a confession and hiding it from them, simply not telling them, is illegal. And that falls under state consumer protection laws. And then another law that triggered what we went over here recently is the FTC earnings claims. And the FTC earnings claims rules require disclosures, typical earnings, sample sizes, and correcting false claims. And LTD violated that, obviously, because they failed to disclose the income disclosures about Amway when they were making income claims at this summit conference with all LTD members in attendance. And they hided the correction, or in other words, they hided the confession of Larry Pam Winters to the low level ranks that are part of LTD. And so that overall constitutes LTD for violating the FTC earnings claims rule. So the laws that are being violated by LTD hiding this confession from low level ranks that are in LTD currently that were in attendance for the LTD Summit Conference. Those three laws that are being violated are the FTC Act and the FTC Earnings Claims Rule and state consumer protection laws. Legally, every person that was at Summit, every attendee that was at LTD's Summit Conference must receive the correction. In other words, they must receive the correct income claims about Amway and the correct false advertisement statements about Amway. They must be corrected because they were told at that event false income claims and false advertisement statements from the owners of LTD at Summit. So they need to receive correction. Legally, they are required to receive correction. They are required to receive a confession from Larry and Pam, the owners of LTD, and they're required to receive a correction so that then moving forward, they know the accurate income claims about Amway and they know the accurate advertisement statements about Amway as well. However, since this confession is kept away from low-level ranks that are part of LTD, low-level ranks that are part of LTD are left with a lie that were in attendance at Summit and that are current today. And then the high-level ranks that are part of LTD are left with the truth because they're shared that video, that confession video of Larry Pam Winters. And doing all this overall is unlawful non-disclosure, and deception. Along with that, it is a conspiracy to conceal because the high-level ranks that are part of LTD, they received this correction, they received the confession from Larry and Pam, but they are deliberately decided not to tell any of the low-level ranks that are part of LTD, the current low-level ranks that are part of LTD. That is all a conspiracy to conceal this confession from the low-level ranks. And you know what, on their side, they might argue and say, no, wait a minute, Larry and Pam are suspended, and then, you know what, Larry and Pam disclosed the truth to the high-level Amway ranks. That's enough. We don't need to tell everyone that was in attendance at Summit, the low-level ranks. We don't need to tell them. As long as we know the high-level ranks, that's fine, because we're the leaders, and we are sort of the head or in charge of the curriculum for LTD. And as the video states, which it is true, the video does state that Larry and Pam are going to change the curriculum of LTD and make it more accurate and truthful. It's what it was stated in the video that I played in my last episode, that they're going to make it more, they're going to update things and do a reset, so to speak, and make it more accurate. And sure, yeah. So like if Larry and Pam did make it more accurate, it's all fine and dandy. No, that's not true. It's not enough to just correct the curriculum. You have to disclose the fact that prior to, your curriculum was violating Amway QAS content standards, and your curriculum was false advertising and making false income claims. By law, legally, you're supposed to make that confession to your current members that were in attendance towards your events that had those false income claims and false advertisement statements. So in this case, every LTD member that is current, that was there at Summit, the LTD conference called Summit, by law, you are legally required to tell every LTD member, low-level rank that was there and current now, that Larry and Pam made a confession that they made false income claims and false advertised. If you just correct the curriculum and don't disclose to them about the confession, that's not enough, and that is still illegal, even with you correcting the curriculum and making it more accurate. LTD did not correct the deception. They buried the correction. The legal violation isn't about the LTD curriculum. It's about the attendees, the LTD members who were there at the LTD Summit conference, who heard the false income claims and the false advertisement statements and were never informed. The law is very clear. The law cares about people that are misled, not materials being used. If a company makes a false claim at an event like Summit, the law says everyone who heard the false claim must be corrected. It doesn't matter if you change scripts, if you change the curriculum, if you update training, if you replace videos. None of that fulfills the legal duty, the legal obligation, because the deception already occurred and was never corrected. So even though Larry and Pam Winters in that confession video said that, yeah, they'll change the curriculum, they'll change the programming of their LTD company as a whole, sure, it might fix the future moving forward in terms of it being more accurate and more transparent in regards to the Amway opportunity. But hiding the confession from low-level ranks that are current members today that were in attendance for the LTD conference called Summit, that leaves past victims uncorrected, uninformed, and not disclosed. And overall, changing the curriculum only fixes what people say. It does not fix what people believe. The LTD members or attendees who were misled at Summit LTD conference still believe the false information because no one told them otherwise. They weren't told that Larry and Pam made false income claims and false advertised to them. They weren't given that confession video. They were not disclosed about the violation of the Amway QS content standards that was violated by Larry Pam Winters. Legally, that's failure to provide a corrective disclosure. That would be like if a doctor hypothetically gives five patients the wrong dosage advice, and then the hospital updates the policy, but the doctor never contacts the five patients. The correction policy in this scenario, hypothetically, doesn't fix the five patients who already heard the wrong info. And, the same thing goes with LTD. Changing the curriculum does not correct the people who were in attendance at the LTD summit called conference. So through Larry and Pam changing the curriculum and fixing it up, that fixes the future. But if they never corrected the people that were in attendance, or in other words, confessed to the people that were in attendance that the claims that were made to them were false, that does not fix the past. And since they did not fix the past, that's the illegality. The illegality is not fixing the past through correcting all of your attendees, all of them that were there in attendance at the LTD Summit Conference, that the income claims and the false and the advertisement claims that were made to them at Summit Conference were false. It needs to be disclosed to them. It needs to be disclosed that they were lied to. It needs to be disclosed to them that Larry and Pam confessed that they were lied to, right? Because Larry and Pam did confess on video that they made false income claims and false advertised about the Amway opportunity to all the attendees that were there at the LTD Summit Conference. So by law, legally, Larry and Pam and LTD are legally required to disclose the fact that every single member that was a part of LTD was misled through false income claims and false advertisement claims. All right, and so by hiding this confession to the current members of LTD today that were there in attendance at Summit, it's illegal. So all in all, this is grounds for termination for Larry and Pam. Just because essentially they double dipped towards violating the Amway quality assurance standards. First, they violated it through publicly making false income claims and false advertisement statements at LTD's Summit Conference to all of its members that were in attendance at LTD Summit Conference. And then fast forward, they confessed that they did those things on video, but then they kept that video from Low Level Ranks that are currently in today that were in attendance at the LTD Summit Conference. That's also another violation, then hiding the video from Low Level Ranks that are currently in today. That's also another violation. And so that's the double dip, where they first dipped through committing the act, and then the second dip is through then hiding the act from Low Level Ranks and never letting them know that Larry and Pam violated Amway quality assurance standards. And so all of that would be grounds for Larry and Pam to not only be suspended, but since they're already suspended now, and they got caught for their first act of making misleading statements. Now, through them deliberately trying to hide the fact that they made misleading statements purposefully and deliberately from their low level ranks, it's grounds for termination. It's grounds for Larry and Pam Winters to be terminated from their Amway IBO distributor accounts. And some may say that's not really a big deal. If you know about the tool system, people that are high level ranks that are in LTD, high level Amway ranks, 80% of their income comes from LTD and 20% comes from Amway. Is that really a big deal if Larry and Pam lose their Amway business? some, if they understand how that dynamic works, they might say no, it's not, but it actually is, because if Larry and Pam Winters lost their Amway distributor account, then they don't have anything to camouflage their lifestyle, because they camouflage their lifestyle by claiming that the lifestyle that they have mainly comes from Amway. They both claim that their lifestyle, the majority of their income comes from Amway, and a minority of their income comes from LTD, when it's reverse. So if Amway were to take away their Amway distributor account, then yeah, essentially they can't run LTD anymore. They can't own it anymore, because what's the point of running your own LTD conferences if you're no longer an Amway distributor, because Amway kicked you out and fired you or terminated you? So like, it would simultaneously be the end of their LTD career, so to speak, or the end of them earning money or revenue from LTD as well. Because if they don't, because if they're no longer Amway distributors, then they can't sell the dream anymore, because they're fired, essentially. If that makes sense. So it would affect both their income streams, both their Amway income streams and the LTD income streams, where like if Amway fires them, they don't have the right anymore to have conferences and to, run LTD anymore, because they don't own an Amway business anymore if Amway fired them / terminated them. So it would actually in reality be a big deal if Amway were to terminate them, but Amway would have grounds to terminate them they made since they violated Amway's own QAS content standard rules, and then they failed on purpose to disclose the fact that they violated those rules to all of their attendees that were there at their LTD Summit conference that are current members today. This is all automatic grounds for termination, because income claims are the number one compliance violation, and labeling the business opportunity, the Amway business opportunity, as a passive income opportunity, etc. Overall, false advertising about Amway is explicitly banned. And, also, Larry and Pam misled the entire nationwide members that are part of LTD that were in attendance for the LTD conference called Summit, because Summit is for all the LTD members that are part of LTD throughout the whole U.S. And these violations of false advertising and false income claims are violations that happen publicly at the LTD Summit conference, and so since it was publicly, it's a flagship event where since these violations were made publicly, the correction also must be made publicly. However, Larry and Pam Winters did not do that, and so since they did not do that, and then privately recorded a correction or confession video only made for high level ranks that are part of LTD, it just compounds the violation. And not only that, but it's also grounds for individual termination for the high level ranks that are part of LTD. So since high level ranks that are part of LTD received this confession made by Larry and Pam, and they know about it, and they are deliberately hiding that from their low level downline ranks that are current today, that were in attendance at the LTD Summit conference. Those LTD high level ranks are in grounds for individual termination as well from their Amway distributor accounts, because they received the confession / correction video, and they were disclosed about Larry and Pam's wrongdoing of violating the Amway QAS content standards. However, they deliberately failed to pass this information down to their downline, their recruits, their members, their low-level ranking members. And doing that legally and contractually um, makes them guilty of deception by omission, which violates several laws such as the FTC Act, Section 5, state consumer laws, and then, Amway's rules of conduct, Amway's compensation plan policies, and etc. And through doing that, they're actually in violation of their own Amway contracts, because within their contracts, there's a clause where a sponsor or an Amway recruiter must not withhold material information from the downline if it affects the accurate understanding of the Amway business. And so, since the high level ranks that are part of LTD decided to hide this video and confession from their low level LTD ranks that are in LTD currently, that are in attendance for the LTD Summer conference, they are on grounds for Amway termination from their Amway distributor accounts because they knowingly let their downline or recruits operate on false beliefs, and they knowingly let their downline use, illegal, or at least believe in illegal scripts such as the false income claims and the false advertisement statements, and they knowingly concealed a compliance issue and allowed their downline/recruits to engage in regulatory violations, and they continue to profit from having their downline be misled, and they overall participated in the concealment of Larry and Pam's confession. And so that is why overall any high-level Amway rank who got the confession video and hid it from their team/downline can be terminated individually from their Amway accounts, even if LTD itself survives from all of this. And along with that, in that confession video, Larry and Pam took the blame and said it wasn't Amway's fault or LTD's fault. That's all just like a damage to control just to protect LTD from getting shut down, because they know in reality that this would be grounds for LTD to get shut down from LTD, or this would all be grounds for Amway to shut down LTD as an organization, because yeah, sure, Larry and Pam may have taken the blame, and so some may argue, and they may even argue that Larry and Pam took the blame, so that clears LTD, right? And no, in reality, it doesn't. Even though Larry and Pam tried to take all the blame and said, it was all on us, it's not on Amway or on LTD, it doesn't overall erase LTD's responsibility. Amway compliance and the FTC don't really care, and they do not decide based on what diamonds say. They decide based on what happened, who benefited, who was affected, what system produced it, and whether the harm was systemic, not on who tries to take the bullet. These violations occurred at an LTD system event called Summit. Summit was not a Larry and Pam personal event. It was branded by LTD, organized by LTD, promoted by LTD, ticketed through LTD, and attended by the entire LTD organization, using LTD training, LTD scripts, and LTD format. So the misleading income claims happen on an LTD stage, using LTD systems and LTD messages. This alone makes LTD responsible, regardless of what Larry and Pam say afterwards. And overall, when it comes to termination of a tool system, Amway determines blame by systemic impact, not by leaders taking blame. And so Summit was an LTD-wide event, so the violation that happened at Summit by Larry and Pam is systemic, not individual. Larry and Pam saying it's not LTD or it doesn't fall in LTD does not legally absolve LTD. And along with that, LTD overall continued to spread the deception after the event, right? Because once the confession video was released, LTD high level ranks kept that from low level ranks that are current today that were in attendance for the LTD Summit Conference. That is organizational behavior, not just Larry and Pam's behavior, meaning LTD as a whole actively participated in the concealment. That alone makes the LTD system in grounds for Amway termination. And you know what the funny thing is that the attempt to shield LTD actually proves that the system is involved, because when the owners of LTD, Larry and Pam, say it doesn't fall on Amway or LTD, it falls on us, it was just us, that's just a compliance. All of that is a compliance red flag, a huge red flag, because Amway and the FTC would view that as strategic admission, not a real genuine admission. It would treat that as a strategic admission, not a genuine apology or a confession, just a strategic admission, damage control. The fact that the owners of LTD, Larry and Pam, tried to shield LTD suggests that LTD's brand is at risk. The violations reflect broader training culture, and it shows that the LTD system fears consequences, and it shows that the LTD system allows problematic scripts, and it shows that the LTD system has an incentive to hide the correction and the confession that was made by Larry and Pam. If the LTD leaders, Larry and Pam, felt the need to protect LTD, it means LTD needed protecting, which means the LTD system is implicated. So even if Larry and Pam Winters take the fall and take all the blame, it is not legally clear LTD as a whole, as an organization, to be shut down by Amway. Summit was an live LTD conference, LTD event, attended by the whole LTD team, because Summit is the FED, Free Enterprise Day version of LTD. So every LTD member was in attendance, and the deception was systemic, and the concealment afterwards, through only giving it to high level Amway ranks that are part of LTD, and then keeping that from low level ranks that are in LTD, that are current and that were in attendance at LTD Summit Conference. That was a widespread decision made on purpose. And so through that, Amway can shut down the entire LTD system, even if the owners of LTD, Larry and Pam, try to take the blame themselves. And so overall, Larry and Pam Winters violated the Amway QAS content standards and made false income claims and false advertisement statements. And this is all grounds for termination. And LTD as an organization can be shut down by Amway for teaching a systemic deception. And along with that, here's the part that people don't realize. Any high level rank that's a part of LTD, Amway rank that's a part of LTD, who received the confession video made by Larry and Pam but hid it from their downline, also committed a terminational level offense, an Amway termination level offense. Concealment of compliance violations is a breach of both Amway rules and consumer protection laws. And so overall, there is a need to tell every current LTD member that was there at Summit the truth about Larry and Pam's confession. It's important because legally they had the right to know about Larry and Pam's confession, and by law, Larry and Pam and LTD are required to give their current members that were at attendance for Summit. They're required by law to give their confession to them by law. So there's a need to tell. There's a need to tell current members today, and so if you're listening to this, and if you know any current members that that are in LTD currently and that were at attendance for LTD Summit Conference, I would encourage you to tell them about Larry and Pam's confession, and to, if you can, show them that video about Larry and Pam confessing. The link to that video it's still in my last episode that I made before this. I'm not sure if it's still up. They might have taken it down since I leaked it. But if it's still up, I would show them. And if not, I have the video recorded. I have the confession video recorded on my last podcast episode as well. So somewhere within that episode, you'll be able to at least hear the audio version of Larry and Pam confessing to false advertising and making false income claims at their recent conference, LTD conference called Summit. So if you know any current members, I would just disclose this information to them because legally they have the right to be disclosed this information to them. And me myself, I will try and find creative ways to disclose this Larry and Pam confession to every current member that's a part of LTD. I kind of have a plan with that. I'm not going to reveal it here, but that's my plan. Along with that, and really the biggest reason why Larry and Pam are hiding this confession from their low-level Amway ranks that are in LTD, the biggest reason is because they don't want to get sued. Because, I mean, through Larry and Pam admitting that they made false income claims and false advertising statements at LTD Summit Conference, a conference where every LTD member is required to go, or a conference that's meant for every LTD member to go and to attend, and they admit that, and they're the owners of LTD as well, Double Diamonds and Amway. I mean, that's huge ammo for a lawsuit. Like, I mean, forget about all the information that's out there. Forget about all the research that's out there. Forget about my research that's out there. Like, if you were to erase that, just that alone, just that one event alone of Larry and Pam admitting to making false income claims and false advertising at that one event, and admitting that, that's still huge ammo for a lawsuit. Whether it be an individual lawsuit or a class action, that's still grounds for a lawsuit. And there's always still that possibility where, Larry and Pam could get sued for that. So that's the biggest reason why, is they just don't want to get sued. Not because they can't handle it financially, because I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, I think financially a lawsuit wouldn't really matter, but if it ends up being like multiple individuals want to file separate lawsuits, then it could be a problem, because now they're having to deal with so many lawsuits all at once, Or if it's a class action, they might be able to financially handle that, but reputationally, it would be kind of damaging, just because, and even a separate individual lawsuit would be damaging as well reputationally, just because, like, people that are prospects that are prospects for Amway and LTD, typically some prospects Google as much as they can, and so, like, if you're a prospect within the interview process or the vetting process, the self-created LTD interview process, I mean, you might Google LTD if you're a prospect just to get some info. You might Google Larry and Pam Winters, and what's going to happen then. You might find a lawsuit document detailing, whether it be individual or class action, a lawsuit detailing them admitting that they made false income claims at an event, and they both admitted that publicly to their entire downline, and now they're getting sued for that. It's not a good look. I mean, if you're a prospect that sees that, it might cause you to walk the other way, possibly. I mean, it's not, and like, I know this because I talked to people that used to be prospects within Amway and LTD, and like, they told me that, yeah, they tried Googling Amway and LTD, and they weren't able to find much. They only found stuff about Larry and Pam possibly being involved with tax evasion. This was before my exposure of them committing tax evasion, but they found like little information about Larry and Pam allegedly being involved with tax evasion at that time. So imagine that fast forward today, where like if a lawsuit did happen from Larry and Pam's confession, and a prospect down the road finds that lawsuit, regardless of what happens, whether or not if that lawsuit Larry and Pam win or they lose, it's still going to be documented publicly, and it's not going to be a good look to see, oh wow, this owner of this tool system that I'm being vetted or interviewed for admitted to making false income claims, and he got sued for it. He might have won or he might have lost, but still he got sued for it. And he made false income claims. Wow. Does that mean he might do it again? If I join and I go to another one of his events, it's not going to be a good look, regardless. So like, regardless if Larry and Pam win or lose a lawsuit, it doesn't matter. The fact that they could get sued for this, especially in a case where they admitted fault. So here in this case, you don't have to try and find fault. Like here in this case, it's already there for you. Larry and Pam already admitted fault. So it's a pretty easy lane, straightforward lawsuit where the defendants are admitting guilt. It's not going to be a good look publicly. So obviously it makes sense why Larry and Pam are trying to hide this confession. They don't want to possibly get sued, and either, if they do even win that lawsuit, they still don't want to at least have that lawsuit be on the record publicly for prospects and downline to Google in the future. So it's not a good look, especially when you have like at least 9,000 members in LTD currently. There's still a chance that you could get sued by at least one person, if not more, or a class action. So that's the biggest ammo why Larry and Pam are trying to hide this confession, but it's not going to work. I'm going to make sure that the entire LT team currently is going to get that confession. Mark my words, I'm going to find a way. I have my skills to do that. So yeah, I wanted to keep it brief. I just wanted to just let everyone know here that that video was not shared with every LTD member currently that was in attendance for Summit Conference. It's only shared with higher ranks. And so, please, if you know any member that's a part of LTD currently and that was there at Summit recently, October 2025, please tell them about this confession, because legally they have the right to know. And so I just want to make this known that this confession is deliberately being hidden from the low-level ranks that are part of LTD, deliberately. And that's illegal. And so I'm trying to just make sure that everyone that's a current member of LTD knows about this confession and is transparently being disclosed this confession made by Larry and Pam. It's important, and this video, it's a pretty damning video. It's pretty damaging, and it's a pretty big deal. And it's not something that should be glossed over or overlooked. It's a pretty big deal, this video, this confession, and the fact that Larry and Pam are trying to hide this video from the low-level ranks proves that. It proves that it's that much of an importance. So please spread the word to any current member that's a part of LTD. And yeah, I just wanted to expose, LTD for trying to hide Larry and Pam's confession illegally. So that was all I wanted to expose. I just want to keep it brief. With that, I'll keep you updated more on my class action that's happening here in the near future and the continuances of Brett and Brenda Harris's and Kevin Schweer's defamation lawsuit against me. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for listening.